Hey class. In this video, we're going to do some more Photoshop stuff. We'll be kind of wrapping up with our Photoshop project this week. So I'm just going to go over one new technique that I think is kind of fun and that I like to use a lot. And I'll kind of review some stuff that I've already covered a little bit. As you can probably tell, we don't have time to cover, every single feature of Photoshop. There's lots and lots of different stuff that you can do. And this class is really more of just doing a little quick kind of jump into all these different topics and getting the basics for how to do something. And then, in future classes at BMCC, you can explore the different topics in more depth if you. So anyway, I'm going to make myself smaller, and then we're going to go over what we're working on. So let's take a look at the schedule. So far we have done some basic intro to Photoshop. We've learned how to post on the Open Lab. We've done some image compositing. And now we're in week 3. We're going to learn Photoshop patterns, which is going to be kind of a shorter little example. And then we'll combine all that stuff together to make our first project, which is the image project. Before we do that, we're going to go over, actually I'll go over this in the next video. So let's just get into the Photoshop for this week. And then in the second video I post today, I'll go over how to submit the final project. All right, so I've got Photoshop open already. You can see the image that I was working on in our previous examples. We're going to start with a new image, but I'm going to actually add them together later. So I'm going to just leave this here for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a pattern. And so that's one of the cool things we can do in Photoshop is we can create patterns that we can then reuse in different places. And it used to be kind of complicated. It's super easy to do now. So I'm just going to find some source material, make kind of a cool pattern, and then I'm going to apply it in this project. So let's find some source material first. So this will be a little bit of a review of how we got our images last time. So I'm going to go back to the browser, and I'm going to go to Google. And I'm just going to search directly into Google, and then I'll go to images. So I think it'd be cool to make a pattern with some flowers. I like flowers. So I'm going to Google flowers. I'm going to jump over to images. And then remember, if I want to use Creative Commons images, which I have to do for this project, I'm going to go to Tools and go to Usage Rights and go to Creative Commons Licenses. And these flowers are already, well, they're not taken out, but they are on a black background, so it'll be super easy to work with those. I'll probably just go ahead and work with those flowers. That's going to be really easy. They have some nice yellow ones. There's a lot of cool options here. I could take these flowers out. Those are pretty nice, actually. You could do a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go crazy. Maybe I'll just go with those first flowers just because they're right there. They're very easy to use. Or maybe I'll use these yellow ones. I'll use these yellow ones because I was going to add some filters. And since these are already different colors, well, I guess it doesn't really make a big difference what I add a filter to. Let's go with the yellow ones. I think that'll be a good place to start. So this is on Wikimedia Commons. That's good. The large size is gigantic. We don't need it to be that big. But yeah, I think this size is fine. That's a pretty big flower for our pattern. Okay, so let's save this. I'm going to hit Control S. And I'm going to save this. My image folder is already open. Just make sure you're saving it in the image folder. I'm going to click Save. And I'm going to import this into my image. So I'm going to make this smaller. And I'm going to make a new file. So I'm going to go to New. I'm going to make a smaller image because I'm going to make it into a pattern. I don't need it to be like gigantic. So I'm going to start with 256 as my width and my height. Just a smaller square. Everything else I'll keep the same. I'll click Create. Okay, so I've got this small image. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to import my flowers. So I'm going to go to File and Place Embedded. And here's my flower image. I'll place that in there. And I've got a bunch of flowers. I know that this image is larger than my canvas. So I'm going to make this bigger just so that when I get it in here, I actually want these flowers to be kind of large. And I'm pretty sure I can get away with this because the image is pretty small. Okay, so I'm gonna make it pretty big. Okay, I'm gonna hit enter. So I've got a bunch of flowers here, and when I move this around, you can see different flowers appear. And I just want to isolate a few flowers, so I'm gonna make a few copies of this layer to start. I'm gonna duplicate 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I'm gonna go over a couple things. We're gonna add some filters in a minute, and I'll talk about a little bit about how organizing your layers is really gonna help in terms of making different types of adjustments. Okay, so let's turn off all of these layers. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, and I'm gonna just grab this flower. So I'm gonna take my object selection tool from over here, and I'm just gonna draw a square over the flower. I think it's gonna be able to find it pretty quick because it's pretty simple. And in this case, what I'm gonna do is actually just hit Control C, and I'll make a new layer and Control V. Okay, so now I have this layer that just has this flower data on it, and now I can transform it and change it. That's going to be useful because this layer, if I had just this mask, let's select it again. Oh, it's off. That's funny. Okay, let's just get it back on here. Okay, so imagine I had this. I just masked this. Oops. Let's select the right image. Imagine I just masked this and I wanted to transform. So I hit Control T to transform. It still thinks that the layer is really big. And so I lose a little bit when I copy and paste. I lose that data. I can't make it bigger. I can't do as good transformations, but it's just a lot easier to work with. So I'm just gonna copy and paste that onto a new layer. And I'll call this layer flower 1. And I'm just gonna delete this mask. I don't need this anymore. And I'll leave this layer like this, but I'm just gonna hide it. I'm gonna make a folder called originals, and I'm gonna put it in there, and I'll just hide that whole folder. So I can just ignore that. And if I want, I can, come back. Okay, let's add another flower. So I'm gonna move over to a flower that I like. That one's kind of cool. Zoom in. I'm just hitting Control plus. And then I'll grab the selection tool and grab that flower. And then I've got the marching ants, it's selected, so I'm just gonna hit Control C and then add a new layer and then hit Control V. And now I'll throw this into the originals. I've got this new layer, I'll call this flower 2. And there we go. Now I've just got this one little flower guy. I can move it around and do stuff with it. Okay. I've got to do this a couple more times, but it's basically the same process. So let's find another flower. These guys are nice. Let's grab the selection object tool, object select tool, get a little selection, Control C or Command C, new layer, Control V, Command V, and we can throw this in here. Okay, I've got flower 3. And then we've got one more flower. Let's see what we can find. Ooh, that's nice. I like there's a lot of petals. Let's grab that. Control C, new layer, Control V. And now we've got all of our flowers. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna bring all these guys together, and I'm going to change the colors using some filters, and I'm gonna kind of fill up this window. I might even make them bigger at some point, but okay, let's actually hide them, and we'll just go one at a time. So now what I want to do, if I'm gonna add filters, I don't want them to affect every single flower. So let's start with flower 1, and then you'll see what I mean. I'm gonna put flower 1 here, and I'm gonna hide other flowers, but I'll bring them back in a second. So let's take flower 1. Let's add a gradient map. That's my favorite. And I'll choose like a blue default, something like that. Okay, that's cool. So notice a couple things. One is that my gradient map is applying to my flower, but it's also applying to my background. And if I bring another flower in, it's going to apply to all of those. And that's not really what I want. So if I want the flower and the gradient map to be kind of isolated, what I can do is I can select these guys and group them. And then here's the thing that we haven't talked about before. This group has an option. The default is pass through. That means the filters pass through to things below it. But if I change this to normal, now this flower is the only thing that gets that adjustment. So that's pretty nice. That makes it a lot easier to add different colors. So let's add a blue flower here. Let's leave it in the middle for now. And let's hide this. Bring up another flower for this guy here. Go to my adjustments and add my gradient map. Let's do a purple. Not really purple. There we go. Okay. And then I just select those two layers and I hit group. And then I change the group to normal. Okay, so now I've got a purple flower and a blue flower. Okay, let's put this guy here. Do the same thing, gradient map. And let's choose a default. Maybe orange. Oh, that's nice. It's really pink, but it's in the oranges. And then I'll select these two layers. I'm just holding shift, so I'm clicking on one layer and then I hold shift and click on the next layer. That. And I click the folder to group. And then I change the group to normal. Okay, now I'm gonna go to flower 4. This is the last one. Then we're gonna get into the actual meat of this project. Let's add a green flower. Whoa. Right. Okay, maybe this one is kind of cool, I think, once we get out of here. So I select those two, add a folder, and change this to normal. Okay. So now we're going to start to build our pattern. So this is going to be kind of fun. I'm going to take this group. I'm going to bring all these guys back. And now I can move these around. Don't actually want to... Okay. So I'm going to make a pattern, but I have to do this in a specific way. I keep accidentally rotating stuff. I don't want to do that. Okay. So I want to make a little pattern, but I want to be careful about how I do it. So the way to create a pattern in Photoshop is we go to Edit, and we go to... Oops, not that. We go to Edit, and why won't it show me? Maybe it's not under Edit. Maybe it's under View. Yeah, that. Okay, View Pattern Preview. It says it doesn't like pixel layers. I think this is gonna be fine. I'm just gonna hit OK. Okay, so this is what our pattern is gonna look like, and it already kind of looks fun. But look, if I move this flower, look at how it's going to wrap around. So that's kind of fun. And it does it for us by itself. The only trick here is if I want to transform this flower. So let's say I want to make it bigger. If I clip here and hit enter, it's going to clip off the end of that flower. You don't want to do that. If you transform it, make sure you can still see the whole thing before you hit enter. So I'm hitting Control T to transform to make it larger. And then I'm hitting enter before I kind of clip it around. So that looks kind of cool. Now we can drag this other flower. Our layers look crazy right now because I'm just clicking on different things. But let's actually drag this blue flower to the back for a moment. So I'm going to drag group 1 down here. So it's in the background. Go to group 2. I'm going to make this bigger as well. So I'm going to transform. But I don't want to clip. I want to get it right there and hit enter. And I'll put this guy like up here. Okay. And let's put this guy back down here. Okay, this is starting to look kind of fun. I could probably spend a lot of time on this. I'm gonna leave this guy in the middle. Let's grab the green guy. And let's make him a little bit bigger. And then let's put him down in this corner. And then let's put the pink guy here, make it big. And then let's drag the pink to the back. Okay. The green is a little too big. Let's just try putting it. Let's see. Put the green. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm not gonna like go crazy on this because I could spend a lot of time trying to get this to look perfect. But I think this looks pretty decent. Actually, I want to move this blue guy. Okay. Nah, let's just leave it. I don't want to go crazy. Anyway, once you've got something that you like, oh, I haven't saved this yet. Always save at the beginning. Don't be like me. So I'm going to hit Control S and save. I'm going to call this pattern.psd so that we don't lose our work. And so now we're going to make our pattern. So we've got our pattern set up, and what we can do is we can go to Edit and Define Pattern. So when we click Define Pattern, we'll call this Flower Pattern. And nothing happened, but if we go over to this Patterns tab, you can see that pattern right there. And now it's going to exist anywhere. If I save this and I go over here, it's still there. So it's saved in Photoshop, and I can use it whenever I want. So let's add something to our pigeon image and our lizard image using our pattern. So I'm going to add some text. I haven't actually really talked about text at all. So let's add some text. So I'm going to add some text, and I'm going to add some text of like whatever the lizard is thinking or something like that. So the text that you see that appears by default is just some like default text. It's called lorem ipsum. You'll probably learn about that in your graphic design class. We're just going to delete it, and we're going to say the lizard is thinking chilling with my homie. Okay, whatever. It's fine. If we want to change this text, so we'll just write some text just to, you know, kind of add some content here. When you're working with text in Photoshop, it's a little tricky. So when we're editing the text, we can obviously edit the text and do stuff, but you can't use the other key commands. Like if I hit Control Z, it's gonna, oh, it looks like it actually works. It should add a Z, but, or if I hit other key commands, it's gonna add text. But if I hit escape, it'll leave the text. And now I can edit the text layer like any other layer, but if I want to edit the text again, I have to go to T and click on it again, or I can hit T on the keyboard. Okay, so if I grab the text, I can look for different fonts. So I can try out different fonts and find something that looks good. Let's see. That looks fine. I don't know. I think the impact font might actually be good for this because it's kind of meme-ish. Let's see, something like that. That's actually kind of cool. And you can change the color of the font. Whoops. Let's get the text again. You have to select it though. So if I try to change the color, but I don't have it selected. If I go like over there, it's not going to do anything. I have to actually have the text selected to change the color. So now if I do that, it's only going to change the color that I selected. But I actually don't care about that because what I'm going to do is put my pattern into my text. So I'm going to go to pattern and throw it in there. And now my text has my pattern on it. So that's one thing that you can do with the pattern that's kind of cool is you can fill other things like shapes or text or other things like that. So let's make this a little bit bigger. And let's play with the pattern. So I can double click on this pattern overlay, and then I can scale it down a little bit so we see more of the pattern. Like that, or I can scale it up. Let's scale it down just a little bit. And we can change the angle of the pattern, we can change the opacity, we can change the blend mode. we can do crazy stuff with that. What about multiply? No, that's not right. I'm just gonna leave normal blend mode. Okay. So now we've got some text with a pattern. It actually happens to kind of match the background. I guess I just have a color palette that I like, although it is a little dark. It's kind of hard to see. Maybe we can just throw a levels adjustment on here. Oh, I'd have to rasterize it first. That's another thing with text. If you want to add regular adjustments, you have to rasterize it. So what I would normally do is I would make a copy of this. I'd say duplicate this, and then I'd hide this copy, and then I would go to either convert to smart object or where's rasterize. So rasterize just turns it into pixels. Let's convert it to a smart object, and then maybe I can add, yeah, let's add a levels adjustment, and let's just make it a little brighter. There we go. Okay. All right, so there we go. It looks kind of silly, but you know, just kind of going through an example of how to add a cool pattern. Again, this is just an example. You don't have to make an image that looks like this. In fact, I would like you to make an image that doesn't look like this. I'd like you to make something that's original and shows kind of your original concept. My goal is really just to show you different tools that may be useful in terms of you know, achieving an interesting composition. Okay, so yeah, what I'm saying is I want you guys to make an original concept. There's lots of cool stuff you can do with Photoshop. I encourage you to explore other Adobe tutorials and things like that. But I'm just covering a few different techniques that I think would be useful. Anyway, I'm gonna pause here. In the next video for this week, I'm just gonna go over submitting the final project. There's a few steps to that. Yeah, I'll see you in that video.